Hi, welcome back to a new video, and in this one I want to talk about a post, actually a thread that I saw over on Threads by Danny Payne Photography. Now, Danny Payne is a gig photographer, so I follow his work, understandably, because a lot of what I do is shoot gigs, but we operate at very different scales, in all honesty. I'm about documenting the local music scene where I live, so it's mainly pubs, clubs, those kind of venues for me, whereas Danny Payne is a professional music photographer. So there's a connection between our two worlds, but he's operating on a much higher scale. And the thread that he posted opened with this, and I will post this all through as you can go through, which is an explanation as to why he turned down a photo pass for the Foo Fighters show in Manchester that is happening basically the weekend that I'm recording this. And I'm recording this on the 14th of June. 2024 for posterity there. And it goes on to talk about the actual release form that he was asked to sign by the Foo Fighters management company. I'll be generous here. I'm not going to assign blame to individual members of the band, mainly because I don't want to. I really like the Foo Fighters to the degree, I don't know if you can see it, I actually have a Foo Fighters tattoo here. They are my wife's favourite band in the entire world, and we are going to see them in Cardiff soon. So I'm going to give the Foo Fighters a little bit of a pass here, and say that this has probably come from their management team, but it's not a good release by any stretch of the imagination. It's what's known as a rights grab release. Now, I will post on screen the entire contract and a link to the thread over on Threads that Danny Payne's put up. So you can read the full contract if you want, and I have no reason to doubt that this is the actual contract that Danny was offered. I know of no reason why he would misrepresent this at all, so I am working on the assumption that this is accurate. I obviously can't 100% verify that, but I'm working on that assumption. And these rights grab contracts are not unknown of. There's quite a few artists have tried using them at a lot of levels. I'm not just talking about, you know, huge stadium fillers like the Foo Fighters here. I'm talking right the way across. You know, once you get out of small clubs, these things can and do exist, and I want to talk about what they are, using this one as an example, and why you as a photographer should never sign anything like this. So the important clauses in this contract that I want to talk about, and I'm going to read these verbatim and show them on screen, are found in section 2. And I'm just going to look at the screen, so apologies if it's a bit weird. Section 2 says, I hereby acknowledge that you shall own all rights in the photos, including the copyrights therein and thereto, and accordingly, I hereby grant, transfer, convey and assign to you all rights, title and interest throughout the universe, that bit's all in uppercase as well, in perpetuity, including, without limitation, the copyright. And we come back on to talk about why that's a bad thing in a short while. It then continues, I agree that you shall have the right to exploit the photos in any and all media, now known or hereafter devised, throughout the universe, in perpetuity, in all configurations as you determine, without obtaining my consent, and without payment again, all in uppercase here, or consideration therefore. I understand that you will use reasonable efforts to give me appropriate photo credit where possible. Now, what this is effectively saying is, if the photographer signs this and goes along to photograph the Foo Fighters, and keep in mind they're not being paid by the band or the band's management firm here in this case, this is a contract to get a photo pass to go and shoot from the press pit behind the barrier. where you can normally only shoot for the first 3 songs of a performance. You may have limitations on where you can publish it. You're not being paid by the band or the band's management company for this. People are either doing this on a freelance basis or they're doing it under contract from a publishing house or a magazine or a website or something like that. So they're not getting paid by the band, but what the band, which is the I in this, or rather the I is the photographer, the you is the band, what is being agreed to here is that you give the band and the band's management company all copyright to anything you photograph. Absolutely anything you photograph at that venue that they can use in any way they want, that they can monetize in any way they want, and you will not get a penny from it, and they don't even have to actually credit you. They just have to use reasonable effort to give appropriate photo credit where possible. So you could literally take a photograph of the band that would appear on a t-shirt on the band's website that they could sell throughout the world for as long as they want, make as much money off of it as they want, and you will not receive, as the photographer, a single penny off the back of it. And that's grossly unfair. Now, the reason why this is grossly unfair is the Berne Convention of 1886 that is ratified in over 170 countries worldwide and has been updated and maintained, clearly states that an artist, and this includes photographers, an artist owns the copyright to a piece of their work the second it is fixed. Now, that was originally in physical mediums, but these days it also applies to digital mediums as well. So as a photographer, the second you press that shutter and record that image, if the camera has a shutter, even if it doesn't, the second you activate the shutter or the sensor and you capture that image, you have the copyright for that image. It is yours. You don't need to apply for it. You don't need to submit a request to gain copyright. It is yours. Furthermore, when you take that and you edit it to colour correct it and balance it, etc., etc., it's yours. You own the copyright for that. And even when you let somebody else use it, either for payment or not, doesn't matter, that is not an automatic transfer of copyright. Your copyright still is yours for that image. And you can put together your own contracts on how it's going to be used. But the main thing here is this is a work of art that you, the photographer, created and you own the copyright to. Contracts such as this, which are known as rights grab contracts, basically steal every single bit of that away from you should you sign one. And you really shouldn't sign one. And I've got to be honest, as much as I absolutely love the Foo Fighters, and my wife would probably kill me for saying this, but if I was given an opportunity to photograph them and I was asked to sign that, I wouldn't do it. And the reason I wouldn't do it is because although it doesn't affect me directly in a big way, because I don't earn a living through this, it sets a precedent that does affect other photographers. And here's why this is important. These rights grab contracts exist pretty much worldwide, apart from in Norway. And there's a website I'll link to, I think it's called iShootGigs or something like that. Let me just check. Apologies, check done. It's iShoot Shows. And they've got a really good article that I'll link to below, and I'll link the original thread, an article on Wiki on the Berne Convention that you can look at, and also this article on iShoot Shows. And this goes on to use examples of different contract types, talks about why rights grabs contracts like this are a really bad idea, and also gives an example of where These don't exist in Norway, and the reason why they don't exist in Norway is press photographers in Norway all got together and as a collective whole agreed that none of them would ever sign one of these contracts. And what that basically meant was that shows or events that tried using them would have absolutely no photographic coverage, not from the press within Norway. And as a result, bands, no matter how large they are, events, no matter how big they are, do not try putting these contracts in place in Norway because they know no one in Norway will sign them. And that's the main reason why I wouldn't personally sign one of these. Not because it would affect me directly, it wouldn't really, but because it affects other people who do make a living from this. But even that aside, there is a hypothetical around this that even I, somebody who doesn't make money out of this, if I signed one of these contracts, and this is how far they go, if I signed one of these contracts, went along and shot the show, and then wanted to put one of these photographs on my website, I legally cannot do it without a release from the band or their management company, because I no longer own the copyright. So a photograph I took, I couldn't even put on my website. I'm not going to make any money from that at all, but I couldn't do it. Legally, I couldn't do it. And if I did it, I could be sued, and I would lose. There's no ifs or buts around that. By signing the contract, I'd have given away my copyright. I'd be in breach of copyright for putting a photograph I took on my own website. And that to me is just ludicrous. It really is. So this is why I wanted to talk about this, because although it's not going to affect me directly, it is something that I do feel quite passionately about. Now, there is also an urban myth, and I don't know how true this is, but I have heard about it from a few different sources, that apparently Coldplay put one of these in place and somebody signed the release just to mess with it and apparently went along to the gig and did nothing but take photographs of Chris Martin's feet, so that's all they got and that's all they had the copyright to, was a load of photographs of Chris Martin's feet. I don't know if it's true, but it's mildly amusing if it is. But I just wanted to talk about this, and I know it's very different to the normal content that I put on the channel, but hopefully you can tell that as somebody who photographs music and musical events, I wanted to talk about this and hopefully understand the reasons why, because this is not a good precedent to set. And I would hope that any photographers who are watching this, if you ever get a chance to shoot a gig and you're presented with a contract like this, you will think very, very seriously about whether you want to give away the rights to your work. And if I do have any bands or musicians watching this, I absolutely implore you, don't put contracts like this in place for photographers at your events, whether you're paying them or not. Don't do this. Respect the artist. You as a musician would not want your copyright to your work stolen. So don't try and do it to photographers who are helping to support you. You know, it is a plea in that regard, you know, and I know my reach is tiny and this may not have any impact whatsoever, but I wanted to talk about it. So there we go. If you found this one interesting, please do hit the like button. And if you want to see more content like this, please do. Well, actually, most content isn't like this. So if you want to see content that isn't really like this, but is still quite good and about photography, please do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified when new content gets uploaded. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. Take care. Bye.